challenge. It's the I've been waiting. I'd like to call this public hearing to order, and I am Doug Morton. I'm the president of the city council. I'm taking over for our mayor this evening. And what I'd like to do is starting with Jacob down there. Jacob, can you introduce yourself and your position, and we'll go right on down the line.
Sure.
Okay.
Jacob Gratian, city planner.
Mohammed Zayer, Public Works Director.
Karen DeRoe, engineering manager. Kathy Payne, HR coordinator, city recorder. Lisa Scholl, deputy city recorder.
Steve Topaz, city councilor.
And Doug Morton again, and
John Walsh, the city administrator.
Patrick Berkeley, council member and liaison to the planning commission.
thank you. And this is Wednesday, August 17th, and the time is 6:01 p.m. And so we're here for our open public hearing. And the topic is appeal planning commission's denial of a 46 lot plan development subdivision preliminary plat located southeast of the intersection of Pittsburgh Road and Meadowview Drive. Comstack, the Comstack stock property. So at this time, I'd like to hand the meeting over to Jacob Reichen to facilitate. We'll go from here.
Thank you, Council President. This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing. The subject of the hearing is a request for plan development subdivision preliminary plat. The subject property is identified on the county assessor map as 411 deep tax lot 604, as well as 4 North 1 West section 680 tax lot 2600. Because quasi-judicial proceedings require the observance of certain procedural formalities, we will take a few moments to cover the preliminary matters and required statements. This one got some excitement the last time we were here. Does any member of the council wish to declare an ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter? I don't see any. So I'm assuming that is a no. Tacit no. And now it's time for the audience. Does anybody from the audience want to object to the ability of a counselor to make a fair decision? The mayor did recuse himself because of the plan development. So, you know, I would like to declare that. Anybody remaining? Thank you. Generally, the order of proceedings will be as follows. The required statements, that's what I'm doing right now. Staff report, which I will follow with, and then the applicant's presentation, those in favor, those neutral, those opposed, rebuttal by the applicant, final questions, close of the record, deliberation, and decisions. I will note there is a time limit, Council President, 5-minute time limit for testimony for anybody except the applicant.
Thank you.
Following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to City Code and ORS 197-763 subsection 5. Following is a list of applicable substantive criteria for this decision, chapter 17.1 to 36 for subdivisions and section 17.148.080 related to plan developments. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as described or other criteria in the plan, such as the comprehensive plan, land use regulation, or that found in the development code, which the person believes applies to the decision. failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues related to the proposed conditions of approval in this hearing, in person or in writing, or failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approving authority and opportunity to respond to the issue, precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, which is the state appeal body above the council on that issue, and precludes an action for damages in circuit court. So with the statements out of the way,
I will say that with your public testimony at 4 minutes and 45 seconds, you're going to see me waving a little bit because we have a session following this. So this is somewhat time sensitive. So I'll keep my mouth shut. Okay, and we'll go forward.
thank you, Council President. So for the council, the staff reports due at a certain time. And in these matters, we usually have some things that come up since then. Those were placed in front of you in hard copy. There was a narrative from the applicant's legal counsel that was received on August 15th. And then there's two things from staff, a list of conditions should you approve based on some suggestions from the applicant, which we'll talk about. And then an equivalent dwelling unit rate calculation, which relates to the sanitary sewer issue, and we'll talk about that a little bit more too. So Kathy, if you can go to the first slide. And this is just an aerial photo, just to give everybody a little bit of geographic context. The Comstock property is the large undeveloped there. It kind of looks like a razor's edge of sorts. In the middle of the screen. There's two lots there. There's the larger one that the cursor is on, and then there's a smaller 1 acre piece up there, and where the cursor has that now. Thank you, Kathy. This was a 46 lot development. It is now 34 lots, reduced by 26%, and we'll look at the revised layout that the applicant has proposed. But some quick details first. There are some other government entities that will be involved. There's a Bonneville Power Administration line running diagonally, roughly through the center of the property. So we'll have to deal with the BPA a little bit. And then some of the roads are county roads, not city roads, such as Pittsburgh Road and Meadowview Drive. You should be familiar with the plan development overlay that has been tentatively adopted. The second reading for the ordinance is tonight. And one of the things in that decision was to prohibit the lot size below 7,000 square feet. And that was one of the main catalysts behind the applicant revising their plat, again, which we'll look at later today. But it still allows some dimensional flexibility, which they did use in that revised plat. But first, let's talk about what the plan development overlay does. Really briefly, this brings us to the next slide. This is a basic table. It provides an overview of just some of our basic zoning standards. And it lists the things that the plan development overlay would normally allow flexibility on, and which it doesn't. And the red text reflects the changes per the draft ordinance prohibiting lot sizes below 7,000 square feet, as well as side setbacks or side yards. A lot of the stuff has to do with lot dimension. As I mentioned, and one thing that plan development overlay does not allow flexibility on is lot coverage. Of course, we have larger lots now, but that would be one reason someone wouldn't want a postage stamp lot, because that lot coverage still matters. And that just means the amount of buildings that can be on a lot. Typically it's 40%. So if you have a big old 10,000 square foot lot, you could have 4,000 square feet of building footprint. So that's the plan development overlay and how it has been tentatively modified to shape this development. If we go down 2 slides, Kathy. we want to talk about the phasing, and we will just describe some of the details of the subdivision. And if you could scroll down to the bottom portion. So this is broken up into 4 phases. This gives the applicant the potential to develop phases individually, which means you're biting off smaller chunks, although they could potentially do them all at once. Phase 1, there at the southern portion in the beige color. To the north of that, you'll see a wetland that has a 50-foot upland protection zone, which is shown there. That's going to be in a non-developable tract of land. When we have subdivisions, there's lots that you build on, and there's tracts set aside for different purposes. Interestingly, if you look at the subdivision on either side of that wetland complex, you may be scratching your head. Well, if that's a tract, why are there lots on either side? And it all has to do with time. Those subdivisions were created before December 2003, which is when the standards for these wetlands and the protection zones took effect. Of course, we're well beyond 2003 now, almost 20 years later. But that's why you see some differences in those neighboring subdivisions. This utilizes some right-of-way dedication that was dedicated in the latter part of last year, if you remember that, off of our avenue. This little portion utilizes our skinny street standard, the 40-foot wide right-of-way. It uses a cul-de-sac with a hammerhead end, and there's a storm tract in there to help manage stormwater. Moving northward, phase 2, this is in the purple, which is now, there you go, thanks, Kathy. So this is where the Bonneville Power Administration easement is at. They're proposing to extend Westboro Way easterly into a traditional cul-de-sac. To the north of that, you have a wetland that has a 75-foot wide protection zone. And if you're an advocate of our Parks and Trails Master Plan, there is a trail proposed connecting Westboro Way to the open space in the adjacent subdivision to the east. That's Meadowbrook. And that does help advance a trail identified in the Parks and Trails Master Plan, which is always something we look for in these kind of things. Phase 3, this is in the green. This provides a connection to Edna Bar, which stubs directly to the property. There's another stormwater tract in there. One thing that that's not reflected in the staff report or any of the later memos you received is phasing. Phasing is not supposed to be based on temporary improvements. And we observed this last time. There's a lot, it's lot 40 on here, but it's on the upper right-hand corner of the phase in the green. And if you see that street stub in the pink is part of the later phase, what that would mean is that lot would be hanging out there by itself. And so it's a minor phasing issue, probably a more minor issue with some of the deals we're addressing here. Willie Lane is the street stub on the east side. Now, it actually does not abut the property, but they are stubbing to what the connection would eventually be. And miraculously, we're able to create a block when those intervening properties. So even with infill development, we're able to create a block that more or less complies with our block standards. Phase 4, this is the rose-colored phase to the north that abuts Pittsburgh Road. Pittsburgh Road is a minor arterial street, and so we're really picky about access on those kind of classified streets. So no direct driveways are allowed. And then because of the adjacent streets, there's really not a practical way to punch a new street out, but it does connect to an existing right-of-way, Meadowview Drive, for the connectedness as allowed or as required by the development code. Let's talk about ownership briefly. There are a lot of stormwater tracts and wetland tracts. Plan developments are required to have homeowners associations, and the homeowners association will be responsible for maintenance of those. One of the significant issues that has required us to put our minds to the grindstone is sanitary sewer. And Kathy, if you can go up a slide. So here's a map of our sanitary sewer system. If you could zoom out just a little bit, you'll see a big X on there. That is the approximate location of the subject property. And what you want to follow on this is between that X and the wastewater treatment pond to the east. And I will, because Kathy probably can't read my mind, but so everybody can see it on this screen. So the routing of the sewer system from here goes like this, and to the pond. And when we're in the red, those are the locations that we are above capacity in the sewer. This was one of the issues that had some concerns with, and was one of the key bases for the Planning Commission's denial. There's pretty high cost in the millions. And those are one of the things that we have to tackle. Now, the applicant in their revised materials proposes a fair share fee in lieu to address this. And that's embodied in the condition list that I put before you to help facilitate a certain decision if that's where the council wants to go.
Point of reference, if I could interrupt.
Sure.
And does that mean the developer would forego a fair share of upgrading the entire area in red that you pointed out?
Well, so this is the juggling act. We know we have a system that is at capacity now. And being at capacity, there's the potential of surcharges, and surcharges gets Oregon DEQ excited, which results in fines. And one of the standards in our code specifies those kind of issues, and that's where the Planning Commission had some issues. Now, there's always local law, and then there's state law and case law, and it's always this complicated mirage of stuff. And that's what we're dealing with here. The applicant, so in order for the sewer to not be red, it would take substantial amount of money. Some of the estimates that came from our engineering folks who are here with us today range from 10 to 14 million. That's for a complete, overhaul of the system. The applicant contends that the deficiency of the entire system is not their problem entirely. And the Planning Commission was like, well, it's very expensive. It's impractical for the applicant to spend millions of dollars because it simply won't pencil. The applicant is saying, hey, look, this isn't entirely our problem. Maybe it's incrementally our problem. And, I don't want to speak for them. They'll have their chance. But based on what they've submitted, they're saying, well, we recognize the problem. We're willing to explore a fair share. And if you recall, we were exploring this kind of avenue several months ago. And so we had our consultants engage in figuring out some of those numbers. We had some communication today, and the estimated fair share per dwelling unit would be 6,600. So that's not, that times 34 lots as proposed now will not pay for the entire upgrade, but it is a assumed fair share. And that's the kind of stuff we gotta consider when we're making land use decisions.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure. So there's that sewer stuff. Now we did we had several options we presented to the planning commission. Denials, we talked about approve it with conditions, and the conditions could include delaying building permit activity until sanitary sewer is upgraded. If the city pursued the DEQ revolving loan fund, it could be 2 to 4 years. If it doesn't, it could be, I think, 10 years, is what you told me. Anyways, a longer amount of time. And there's the question of, okay, how many units do you add? What's your increase of risk and surcharge and fines and all that stuff? Now, one of the reasons, actually, let's look at the revised plat, which is the last slide. So here's where we were with the planning commission. So since then, the applicant has gone back to the drawing board and said, okay, all right, you see that you're excited about lots below 7,000 square feet. So what this plat does is it still utilizes that plan development overlay, because you have lots that are narrower than what you would normally have, but no lot shown on this plat is less than 7,000 square feet. And as I mentioned earlier, it does result in a 26 overall reduction of lots. So that is a potential reduction of the impact to the sanitary sewer system. Now, the applicant has several arguments in their narrative. I think mentally it might be better for you to hear all the testimony, and we can tackle that though as we need. But the one I want to kind of talk about briefly, and why we're suggesting this approval with these conditions, with this fair share fee in lieu of, is moratorium law. So in the statutes, it says if a city has a practice or pattern of restricting or denying permits based on utility issues, you're supposed to have a moratorium or this other public facility plan. Right now, we have 0 of those, so there's no pattern or practice. So let's say this was denied based on that. You know, that itself may not constitute a pattern or practice, but we're going to be in a position where we review other development proposals, and as we continue to do that, our back will be increasingly against a wall to have to establish a moratorium. And so it's this real sensitivity into where we're at with the applicant. And I think I'll leave more details for later as we have testimony. And do you want me to direct?
Please.
Okay. Just want to make sure I respect your commandment of the.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So applicant, if you wish to.
Good evening, Council President and Councilors. My name is Ken Sandblast, with Westlake Consultants.
For the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Do I need to give my mailing address? Okay. To my right is Nick Harris, who's working with us on he's got the letter that was submitted. Oh, sorry, that's part 4.
noise development.
So we're gonna speak first, then we're gonna have Nick Harris come up. They look the same. You're welcome to come up down there. We're gonna be somewhat short, and because we believe that there was 2 issues that were the basis of the appeal. And staff has covered both of them. One was the layout that was not complying with regards to the PD decision that's been made for the 7,000 square foot minimum lot size. As you know from the materials we submitted, and it's right there on the screen, that the layout now does comply with that PD overlay. So as that gets adopted, I think it's scheduled to be adopted later this evening, then this plan complies with that. So that was one of the bases of appeal that gave us the opportunity to present that plan. Again, as Jacob did a good job of covering, the PD table that was presented is still in effect. This is simply about the 26% reduction in the density. and all of the lots complying with the PD overlay condition of approval. The other issue is the sanitary sewer. And Mick is here to talk about that, but before Mick talks about that, I want to give Clark the opportunity to speak as well.
Yeah, so we felt like we did a really good job listening to you guys, and concerns from the community. Making sure we apply those, conditions that you put forward in our new layout. And just want you to let you know, we're open to, continuing to move forward, cooperatively. And, building a nice community for St. Helens. I'll let Mick take the sanitary sewer issues from there.
Thank you, council. My name is Mick Harris, and I, along with my colleague David Peterson, are the attorneys representing the applicants. I think Mr. Gratian did a good job of explaining some of our concerns, but I'm just gonna have a duty to speak this into the record, kind of go through the points that we made in our letter that we submitted on the 15th, but I try not to belabor it. First, we would find that because the commission denied this application with respect to St. Helens Municipal Code 17-152-0904. It's important to talk a little bit about what that statute, what that code states, which is that development permits can be restricted if there are certain deficiencies in the sewer system. We find that the findings that there were deficiencies in the sewer system would have been improper for a number of reasons. First, the city council adopted ordinance 3281 just 3 months prior to the denial of the applicant's proposal. And in adopting that prior ordinance in March, which annexed the subject property, the city council found that there was no concern regarding sanitary sewer, stating that any potential uses that occur on the property could be accommodated by the city's sanitary sewer system, and that there was substantial capacity available. And because the commission did not point to any changed circumstances between that March finding and then the denial in July, we would argue that there's not substantial evidence in the record to justify the statement that there is insufficient sewer capacity. However, if there is inadequate sewer capacity or concerns with respect to that capacity, we would counter that there are a number of considerations that would encourage the council to nonetheless approve the application. In one, and this is what Mr. Gratian mentioned a few moments ago, that in denying the application in such broad terms, the city, we would argue, would have imposed a de facto moratorium. However, for a moratorium to be established, there are certain statutory requirements that the city must follow. And in not doing, the imposition of such a de facto moratorium would be unlawful. And secondarily, it would also qualify as a taking under state and federal constitutional law. The reason that these statutory mechanisms are in place to allow for the public facility strategy or the moratorium is to ensure that such unconstitutional takings do not occur. And so that would be our argument in so far as the concern about the moratorium. There would be an argument that a subdivision itself is not a development permit, as it is a plat to draw lines on the map to create new legal lots from a larger parcel. And the code, which raises concerns about deficiencies in the sewer system, speaks specifically to development permits. Also, with respect to the Oregon statute 197-3074, which is colloquially referred to as the needed housing statute, there are concerns that the municipal code's standards are not clear and objective as required by law, insofar as it talks about deficiencies in the system, but there's not a lot of definition as to what qualifies as deficient, and how such a deficiency could be adequately remedied. And with respect to the needed housing law, we would also argue that the order to deny the application violates needed housing, the needed housing statute, by not allowing the ability to build new needed housing in the community. There is not, to our understanding, concerns with inconsistencies with the comprehensive plan or land use regulations, and as such, it would be prohibited to deny that needed housing. And then lastly, we had raised concerns about there not being a proportional calculation as to how the applicant could pay their fair share to ensure that they were contributing back to the strain that they would put on the system. But it sounds like there's been some discussion there, at least among the planning commission, And the condition list, which was provided by Mr. Gratian to the council and to the parties earlier today, is something that the applicant is willing to accept. The phases, the fair share fee of 6,600 per equivalent dwelling unit, if the council so decides. And I'll just stop there, save time. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, that was one of the primary issues with this the whole time when the capacity issue came up, was getting to a proportional share. So for us to finally see that and have that come to the forefront, the appeal has paid off from that perspective, because it is a system-wide issue that's confronting the community. It's not this individual application. So even though it's been a journey to get here, it does feel like that's an appropriate solution, given the circumstances of this coming up now, after all these years of having a system capacity issue that's now come to the forefront. So we just appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you for these two topics. We feel like we've answered the 7,000 square footer to comply, and we support the conditions of approval that have been presented, particularly the $6,600 EDU. And so we would look for your support by reversing this appeal as we requested it to be done. Do you have any questions of us? We'll see if we can answer them.
Hearing none, I just want to thank you for your straightforward testimonies. Appreciative and especially. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Next category is anybody who wishes to provide testimony in favor. Oh. Yeah, she's, yeah, if the council, the owner, who is part of the family, would like to testify. I don't know if you want to treat her as an, well, she's essentially an applicant.
I
Yeah,
just
as far as
want-
time limit.
Yeah,
And
still cautioned about time sensitivity is important. So that's fine with me.
absolutely. I just wanted to kind of, first and foremost, thank you for your consideration on this matter, but also address the fact that although there are those opposed to or that may have issues with the sale of the land or with building on the land, it was decided in 1991 by the city of St. Helens and the town of Oregon that this land was to be residential land, not farmland anymore, not a meadow. And the land will be sold either way, right? And so to the lawyer's argument, there are constitutional rights that my mother-in-law has to sell the property and to develop on the property. And I do feel like in the last couple of meetings, they were overlooked because the meetings were very caustic. We have been threatened physically. We have had our name smudged publicly. We've had people try to adversely possess the land. And at the end of the day, we are and have been just trying to do the right thing by the city of St. Helens. And we did pick Noyes because they are a 5-star developer. And we urge the town council to consider, when you're making your selection and you're thinking about this, either way, the land's going to be developed. And we can either fire sale it to someone that is not going to take as much care and put in the trails and the parks and willing to do the investment and to provide a better quality product for the city that we would hope the city would see, given the family history there. Or you could end up with someone that, frankly, a bigger builder that doesn't care, right? Because we did have 6 offers. We picked them for a reason, because of the quality that they will bring to the town, despite the fear and uncertainty and doubt that has been spread. And so we hope that you take that into consideration. Again, with the legalities that have been presented from Noyes today, because I do feel like that as far as my mother-in-law's constitutional rights have not necessarily been upheld in some of these other meetings. And frankly, the not having the time limit, so I'm appreciative of that, have led to a point where meetings ran on till the wee hours of the morning, where people couldn't make clear, concise decisions because of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and frankly, physical threats to people's beings. That we're hoping that the city of St. Helens will take that into consideration, and also hopefully in the future prevent that to happening for other people that are trying to frankly do what they were told that they had to do by the state of Oregon and the city of St. Helens. And we're talking in 1991, right? So it was decided for us 30 years ago. It wasn't something that we decided overnight. Thank you.
Okay, so that should be enough for the applicant. I can't think of any other people. So we'll start with each category in favor, neutral, and opposed. We'll start with in person and then Zoom per category. So the first category is anybody here who would like to testify in favor of this subdivision. We'll start with anybody present who is so inclined. No takers. Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to testify in favor of this subdivision? Okay, next category, neutral. Those in person, if you would like to testify in neutral fashion, this is your chance. And it looks like we do have at least one taker.
Thank you. Counselors, my name is Steve Toski, and I'm here in my individual capacity, not on any capacity with the Planning Commission. And I am commending the property owner and developer for respecting the decision of the Planning Commission and moving forward with a plan for the development that is 7,000 square foot lots. Better hit the button. And the only reason I'm neutral on this is because I haven't had a chance to look at them in detail, but I'm sure you have, and so I'll leave this up to your judgment. I wanted to speak neutrally on this sewer issue because I think the council has been advised of this and has done some deep thinking about it. I would urge the council to prioritize the pinch point of this particular sewer issue. We had heard a 2 to 4 year time frame in developing the sewer repairs or upgrades or whatever it is that you want to call it. I think that should be a 2-year maximum. So I think the council needs to very much have a very honest discussion with our citizens about the costs of our infrastructure changes. And we need to be looking toward revenue production, which is the same thing I've said in the budget committee meeting, exploring things like gas taxes that will help us with infrastructure and pay repairs and improvements. And this is the consequence of where we get when, we're really at a point where we need to be upgrading our systems and helping our citizens continue with the first-class city that we have. And I think the council can realistically say, yes, we're going to get this job done. And there's a plan to get it done, and the citizens understand how much it's going to cost. Then that's something that should be done. Because people should be able to develop their property and should be able to expand. And I'm neutral, I'll leave this up to the council. But I wanted to state those things. And thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else physically present who wants to testify neutrally? Anybody in Zoom land who would like to testify neutrally?
The Kirtland.
Rhonda, it looks like you're up.
Yes. Hi, good evening. This is Rhonda Kirtland. I'm at 59305 Bar Avenue. And I just wanted to thank the developer and the owner for the revision. Very happy to see that the 7,000 square foot is going to be honored. That was a big one for me. I wanted to just talk about the St. Helens wastewater master plan. And I think the person right before me kind of touched on a little bit. And when I looked at it, it looks like we're in Basin 6, which is priority 3, phase 4 and 5 for the pipes. And in the master plan, that shows that that wouldn't be addressed until the years 2032, 2041. So my question is, will the council prioritize this development, into a earlier phase? I mean, how will the council and the city compare the areas that need improvements in regards to the new development here? And I think that's really the only thing I really wanted to touch on, is just I wanted to find out what the plan is for the development phases of the land compared to the development phase of the restructuring of the pipes in our area, because I feel like that's maybe a little bit off. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
Anybody else in Zoom land who would like to speak neutrally? I see a hand up. Cindy Perseth, if you would like to testify, now's your chance.
Hello, I'm Cindy Perseth. I have been the president of Meadowbrook's Homeowners Association for years, and think that initially there was some misconceptions about the comparison of a planned development to a planned development, and I think that maybe has become a moot point because they now have figured that out. I think that the thoughtfulness that has been given to this by the people, the company that's doing it, the family that's selling it, they are thinking about fire safety. They're talking about maintenance of wetlands, which truly, having inherited a lot of land that was once not wetland and now is, and homeowners who are trying to deal with the issues that ensue from that. They're going to add a trail which was promised to the HOA of Meadowbrook many years ago and never came to fruition. And by doing it in phases, I've spoken to a lot of the people in the different phases of Meadowbrook personally. And when I explained to them, what road will be cut through, what it will be used for, the access for fire and emergency, all of that, I am not getting a lot of pushback from anybody. As a matter of fact, I'm getting a lot of positive. I mean, let's face it, it's open land. It's not being used now. I don't know if you've ever tried to mow a 12-acre field, but it's not easy. And trying to maintain a wetland is almost impossible anymore. And nobody wants to do it. The city doesn't, I don't, no one wants to, but it still has to be done and done properly. So I think that we're on the right path to do things in the correct manner. And I do think that the company that's doing this is looking at how they could partner, and I mean partner with the city to do this so it reduces city costs, county costs, and still serves the purpose of the sale and the development. Somehow it's going to be developed, who knows how, why, but it's going to. So how do you do it in a thoughtful, mindful, productive manner instead of slapdash slam in a bunch of duplexes and call it happy? So that was all, but I do appreciate the thought and time that you all are putting into this very much.
Thank you, Cindy.
All right, any more people who are neutral on Zoom? Or in person? We do have another neutral in person. So John, if you want to.
I'm John Burlington of the 59483 Meadowview Drive. I'm pleased to see that
How are you?
expanded this to 7,000 square footage. That's a vast improvement. I don't have a lot of objections, but I would like to see find some way to solve the sewer problem without costing me. I don't know how they can divide that up and do that, or I don't have it, I'm not, one of the people in the city not on the sewer, so. And my other main concern is the annexing, or what I know we call it, adding of a turnoff through the proposed subdivision onto our road and onto that. And I know the upper portion of the road is owned by the county as a local access road. But if you leave that open there, people will be constantly cutting down through there and cutting through the Bar Avenue and Willowsies and over to the main Bar Avenue. So it's my concern that we're gonna see a lot of traffic. We already see some traffic, people just get lost. And if we could cut that out, I don't see why I couldn't just run with the streets the way they are inside the proposed area, not attached to Meadowview. They're not a very good place to attach. It's a semi-steep hill to get onto Pittsburgh and hard to see. And I'm afraid it's more dangerous than anything else. I would like to see that. So I'll find an accommodation we can make with that. I was looking at the upper portion of the plotting, and it looks to me like if you just cut it out, you could expand the size of 2 lots and have some cul-de-sac there, still go off both in 2 directions and connected 2 or 3 other ways on the side. Basically leave us out of, there's 7 homes down on the street. I just say, well, it's spoiled being having had it in the street for the last 20 years that I've been.
So what you're proposing, I have an item of clarity. What you're proposing is access to Pittsburgh Road in the neighborhood.
No, access to the Bar Avenue.
Bar Avenue.
On the east side.
Okay.
Going up and staying off of Meadowview. Right now it comes down, I'm not sure how far, 150 feet, and then connects into the subdivision. There and then gather again over a Bar Avenue. They just leave it alone. So I think that's a big concern of a lot of people.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you, John.
Okay, last call for neutrality. All right, I believe we're on to the next phase. For those who are opposed, we'll start with those in person. And Bob had his hand up first, so.
Good evening, council. Bob Johnston, 34969 Roberts Lane. I wanted to clarify what the applicant's proposal of the 6,500 for 34 lots. They come out to 224,200, somewhere in there. Out of the $10 million improvement for the sewer, seems ridiculously low. Growth should pay for growth. We'll put more houses in, let them improve the infrastructure. And the other issue I've got is the additional traffic on Bar. Through Meadowview, the additional traffic from all of these houses on Bar, which is already overloaded. So I'm in favor supporting the commission denial of their application. Unless they can come up with the money to improve the sewer, it doesn't make sense for me to pay for their improvements. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue the march of the opposed.
It's gonna be a march. So you're all familiar with me, Matt Snook, Meadowview Drive. As you probably all remember, I'm adamantly opposed to this in every way, shape, and form for a multitude of reasons, but John said it very well, eloquently about the road turning into Meadowview Drive. That is already a hazard as it sits. There's gonna have to be there would have to be a massive amount of restructuring of that whole area to be able to make it safe. So, but I feel equally as bad for the folks on Bar, even just the traffic coming from a street or two up the road. all barrel down Bar. I've had to, dip off to the side on Bar Avenue to get out of people's way because it's narrow through there as it is. And people just bomb down there. So these folks, I feel for them, it's just absolutely horrid. Somebody's kid's gonna get hurt or dead or worse. So it's just gonna be one of those things that we have to take into account. I hope you guys don't kowtow to the veiled threats of the pipsqueak back there. I don't think that that's, putting you guys under the gun for this stuff is it's not their fault, right? That we're at capacity with our sewer system, nor is it mine, nor is it the rest of these people's. So at some point in time, somebody messed up, right? Or you looked far enough into the future. So now we're at the position where somebody's gonna have to pay for it. And it shouldn't be the people who are already paying for everything else, right? We shouldn't be accruing this cost. So, and then we still have to really look at the wetland portion of it. So we already got wildlife in there that's been run out once by the mayor, which we've already talked about. And then my wife being a veteran, bought that house before I came along. We bought that house because of the surroundings, because it was quiet, because it was a peaceful place to raise our daughter, and our grandkids now. And that we see that dwindling right in front of us with our property values tanking as a result of this, because the people who live out there want a country setting. Now, I'm not opposed. I think the lady has the right to sell her property or her family's property. But it doesn't mean she has the right to go ahead and shove a development down somebody's throat that's going to be detrimental to sewer, water, garbage, everything. And the wildlife. So donate it to a public park, make it another park. Not that that would decrease traffic immensely, but it would be, make it a community garden, donate it, do something with it, put a single residence on there. A high value home, which is what the actual owner wanted. The original owner wanted that. I talked to him many times, so he wanted a single residence for his retirement and family home. Not for 50 houses, 37 houses, 26 houses to be shoved down the area. So I stand adamantly opposed and will do everything in my power to fight for the people in the community. At the end of the day, we're the ones you have to deal with once they're all gone back to Portland or Arizona or Texas or wherever the hell they're from. We're still here. So, and you guys have done right by us so far. Yeah, not that you've been showing any bias on the side of people, but you've decided fairly thus far, and I hope you continue that trend despite the threats. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's important that wherever we are on this issue, everybody has a right to express whether they're opposed or not, but I think it's important we ask or remind people that we should not be making personal attacks right through name calling. I just don't think that is appropriate, and it does not help the argument of base on any side of this.
Good point. I hope that resonates through the crowd. Good point. Okay.
All right. Who's next?
Hello again. Nikki Noost, 34854 West Rural Lane.
Name one more time.
Nikki Noost, thank you. I'm a little confused. I'm not sure about how this is all going because I understood that the overlay had been denied and was in what am I trying to say?
So the overlay, hasn't been
Denied by the land use
we're making it.
and it's in appeal. So are we dealing with the overlay now or now that it's now?
This is not the overlay.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, from what I understood, this, according to some condition 2A that was in your paperwork that I read through today, I don't know if that was city, county, state, or what that was.
Oh,
About the overlay had to be approved and had to be effective before we could even be dealing with the fact that we were working now on the subdivision, so.
Good technical question. You're reading. That's
Well,
good.
I am reading, of course I
Sorry
am.
for my interruption.
So, no, so,
Yeah, well, so what that means is this is a non-standard subdivision.
non what?
It's non-standard subdivision. So meaning that now in its current layout, you have lots narrower than what would normally be allowed.
In the current layout of 46 or 34?
In the
Because we never
34.
saw the 34.
The
I don't know
34.
when, if that was the 11th hour. And it
That
never
was-
came through on our paperwork.
That was submitted on August 15th.
Okay. and
So it wasn't in the original packet,
Okay,
but it is now
okay.
part of the record. We showed it up here
Okay.
briefly, and we can show it again to it.
Well, I did see it. So part of that original denial by the land use planning committee was that. That they beat the minimum lot sizes of 7,000 square foot lot. Is this new proposal doing that?
Yes,
Oh, it is. Good. Okay, so the 34 is meeting 7,007 feet.
yeah, that's what resulted in the 26% reduction of lots.
Okay,
You get
I
that
like
lot
that.
size.
Now we're to the sewer system issue. And I don't understand exactly about who should be responsible, and I do agree with the developer that they're not entirely responsible for what already has come down in the city, but the city is responsible for that, and if we're at critical mass, of course, we shouldn't be impacting that more. So what do? You did this whole business of moratorium, I'm all for that, until we straighten up our act a little bit. I mean, I think the people of the city expect clean water and good sewer systems, and we have the water, but we don't have the sewer system, so I don't think we should be impacting it in any way until that's done. I didn't understand if the 14 million now that it's gone up from 10 was about the Sykes line or the whole sewer system. It doesn't sound like it would be the whole sewer system. That was in the
It
paperwork.
was 16 million, and that was for
16.
2 priority 1 basins and
Sykes being one of them, so that's.
Sykes is a priority 3, but we did include it in that cost.
Okay, so
But Sykes by itself is a little bit over 8 million.
$8 million, so $250,000, 8 million, he thinks that is their percentage. Where does the rest of it come from? And, we really need to deal with this because I don't want sewage being on anybody. And that's what would happen if we keep impacting it with more housing. I think that's it. Look at, I've got a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, that's all right.
I like what happened in your testimony. You asked questions and that's okay. All right, so.
I'm just trying to get clarification because
Discussion of 5 minutes is fine, and here's the staff that knows about it.
Appreciate it, you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Good evening, Abigail Dawson, 59312 Mountain View Drive. My property backs up against the subject property. I have a few big concerns with this. The first one being the sewer. $8 million just to fix Sykes, and we're gonna try and add 34 homes to that. That is a whole lot. And if we're looking at several years before it can even be started, and we're adding homes to that's a pretty big deal to me. As a resident of St. Helens, I'm kind of surprised that this has not been brought to the public's awareness prior to this. I believe the report with the map with the red lines was issued in November of 21. We're now in August of 22, and the only place I've heard of this is in these meetings. Second off, with regard to this particular subdivision, traffic is a big issue. Sykes Road does not have sidewalks, does not have bike lanes. You're dumping all of this traffic onto Sykes where people walk their kids, walk their dogs, ride their bikes. You can't pass somebody who's in the traffic lane without moving into the oncoming traffic with blind corners. Somebody's going to get hurt, as is. And if we're going to add more to it, we increase our risk of somebody getting hurt. Bar Avenue, same thing. It's just a really dangerous area to add more traffic to without significant improvements to the infrastructure of the city. Sewers, streets, sidewalks, basic things that allow for safety for our citizens. My third issue specifically with this subdivision plan has to do with the wetlands. And what Jacob had mentioned earlier about there are tracts that have wetlands that run through them that are privately owned that were developed prior to December of '03. My home is one of those. I have about a 14, almost 15,000 square foot lot. About half of it is unbuildable because it is wetlands. I'm also not allowed to fence off any portion of that wetlands for my own private property. I can't put a fence around it because it's wetlands, it's protected, which means if these homes go in and they back up to this wetlands, and that wetlands is going to be open space or encouraged to be used by the residents, there is no way for me to delineate. And there's several homes along both sides that have this issue. It's not just my property. But there's no way to visually delineate between the public open space of the wetlands that is in this subdivision and the privately owned wetlands. One of my biggest concerns, security, safety, liability. Somebody's on those wetlands, wanders onto mine, breaks their leg in a stream. They're suing me. I need to be able to secure my property if it backs up to these wetlands. And I think that there's there's a total of 8 or 10 houses on the total backing up to this property that have that same issue. Those are my biggest concerns, but I think the sewer issue is absolutely a #1 priority. And then the traffic safety issue is my #2 priority in being opposed to the development currently. I think a moratorium would be a good idea. Like Vicky said, until we can get our act together as a city and really make sure that our infrastructure is sound enough to sustain growth for the long term. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
My name's James, 59543 Meadowview Drive. I just want to bring up one thing, and I know it's been said a lot, but the sewer line, isn't there people over on Furlock that cannot get hooked up to sewer right now?
Yes, Furlock has a problem.
So why isn't that being brought up in the public so they know what's going on instead of just this? I know that's what we're here for, but shouldn't it be, transparency?
Yeah, Furlock, it's a little different system, because then we're talking about what's called a step system. And it's related to sanitary sewer, but it's a different type of problem.
Okay. But they can't hook on to city sewer, correct?
There's no public sewer available for Furlock, so it would have to be all brand new infrastructure to serve that area.
Okay. Fair enough. And then the second is what John said, traffic funneling down. I was gonna pretty much say exactly what he said, so I'll keep my mouth shut. I mean, that's simple, because they're gonna come down, funnel through and go over the bar. So appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Anybody else in person?
Yes.
It's Amanda Furnish, 59460 Meadowview Drive. A lot of things you have heard already. I'm going to repeat it again. I am one of those houses backed right up against the wetlands. And I know there's been a lot of talk about cute little parky walkthroughs. There's only my property that would be a walkthrough area. I don't know how that's going to work. Liability is a big thing. Meadowview Drive is a very small road. Very hard to look both ways on Pittsburgh as it is to pull out. Safety concerns are big enough as it is. I have 3 teenage boys and I don't like them getting out on it. I can't imagine 36 more cars coming through Meadowview Drive. Same with Bar Road. Bar Road doesn't even have a middle lane, let alone bike, They do have sidewalks, but there's not any bike lanes. There's cars parked in the street, so I can't imagine that many more cars on Martin, let alone Pittsburgh, let alone any more cars on Meadowview Drive.
Thank you, Amanda.
Anybody else physically present?
Hello? Stevie Osmond, 59420 Meadowview Drive. Obviously the sewer problems are a huge thing. I'm not understanding, when you guys talk about who's gonna pay for it, the fair share. There are plenty of people in St. Helens that run along the red that aren't even a part of the sewer system. So if we were gonna connect to DEQ, everyone would have to pay, even if they didn't even go into sewer. It does not seem fair, and I'm kind of wondering about that. Meadowview Drive is 7 houses. It ends to all 3 properties. There's no safe way to turn around except for turning into my property. My cars are there, my child plays there. We have a community garden that we all have together. It's dead ends to us. It's Meadowview Drive is not a safe place for this neighborhood, the street to end to. Sorry, I'm nervous. And then just to counterpoint the whole wetland area, I sit and bird watch with my family and watch all of the pheasants and the eagles and the birds, and they use that wetland area, putting in 35 houses before even the sewer system can even handle this is going to be detrimental to the nature. I think I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else who is in this room? Okay, Zoom, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak in opposition to this proposal? I don't see any. iPhone, if that's your name. Did you unmute for the purpose of testifying?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
There's 2 iPhones.
Go ahead, iPhone.
There's 2 iPhones.
First.
I guess you can fight amongst yourselves who talks first.
Heidi Oliver.
Okay, Heidi, if you'd like to testify, please do so.
Okay, my concern is Bar Avenue and the traveling myself. And I live on Westboro Way. I've had to deal with Rich Bailey's building. I've watched it. These people drive like maniacs. I have to get Muhammad to put a stop sign in. Now, I am opposed because of the safety fact, and we don't have schools to accommodate the growth. We are not ready for it. We are just not ready for it. And if St. Helens agreed to Miss Comstock's property thing in 1991, that development approval was done by Skip Baker. He messed everything up in this city. And so I'm really opposed to it. I don't think we're ready for it. I think our stores, you have to stand all the way down the end at Safeway. Grocery outlet's a joke, you know, we're not ready for it. You gotta put a bunch more stop signs and stoplights in. Is that what you're gonna do? I don't think the city can afford it. I'm so opposed to this. And when I see that place being built across from Walmart, all I can see is just a clutter F. Because people are going to be standing all the way down the end of the line around the store because they can't get what they want. It'll be off the shelf before you know it. So our infrastructure is hurting. We can't afford to pay more taxes to support this. And the city of St. Helens Water Department is really overstepping their bounds. And I think we're not ready for it. And I don't think they can do it. I really don't. And so that is my whole thing.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
The other iPhone person?
Yeah, my name's Jacob Holder. I'm at
Or
the 5942.
Jacob
Oh, sorry.
Repeat your name one more time, please.
Yeah, it's Jacob Holder.
Thank you, Jake.
I'm at 59460 Meadowview Drive. I am in opposition of this deal, mainly because of the sewage infrastructure system being one of them, and the offshoot off of Meadowview Drive onto this new development. As has been stated by many people that are on this street, the pulling out onto Pittsburgh is already difficult enough as it is. It's got a very decent incline to it, which causes problems when you're trying to pull out and be able to see both ways. And adding that extra bit of traffic that's going to be coming from the new development is just going to make things even more difficult going out there. And then I know it's also been stated in regards to, Sykes Road and whatnot, and not having any sidewalks or anything to be able to facilitate extra foot traffic, bicycle traffic, and the extra traffic, let alone on bar as well, is another reason for my opposition to this. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jacob.
Is there anybody else in Zoom who would like to speak in opposition to this matter? I think we got through it.
I have a matter of clarification before the council moves into deliberation. Everyone is finished here.
Yeah, we have another question and then an opportunity for rebuttal.
Okay.
Thank you. Robert Johnston, Robert's Lane, 34969. Kathy, can you bring up the map with the sewer deficiency or the red line on the sewer lateral? Can you pull that up? Sorry. Just east of the X in the W498, that line there. If somebody were to put a single family residence, not this entire subdivision, would they be permitted to attach to that sewer lateral in the red area?
Single family dwelling on an existing lot.
On one of those, a lot that would connect to that deficient line, would they be allowed to attach to it?
Well, that's something that we've talked about. And because this is a new issue, we haven't had to tackle that specific thing. But I will say that the decision of the council tonight will help shape how we look and tackle these issues.
That was my question. Do you have a plan for mitigating the deficiency there? Do you have any ideas of how to cure the problem with the sewer line? Is it a pressure line? Is it increasing the line size? Is it?
The only ways to increase this.
Pardon?
The only ways to increase the size.
Or an additional pipe? Or an additional pipe?
We looked at both options. It's more expensive to run a parallel pipe. It's more cost efficient to just.
So if a single family could not at this time connect to that line, why would we want 34 more? That's my question for the council to consider. Thank you.
Okay, rebuttal if desired.
Again, for the record, Ken Sandlast. We haven't had a chance to talk about it very much, so I'll say something and then. I just wanted to touch on a couple of items that were testified to. Activity is one of them. Lots of testimony was about the connection of the street to Meadowview. That's required in the code, as far as I can recall. about having street connections. This property has a lot of streets stubbing into it. And the original staff report in your file and records of this talk about the connections that are being made and how they satisfy the code for that, including out to Meadowview, which is a public street. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. Another one is traffic. It reminded me that we did a traffic study and it was submitted for the original application for the subdivision. It was based on the density. It was more than you have now before you because this plan has been reduced, as we've said already a couple times tonight, 26%. So the traffic study that was originally done finds that the system and the existing system is adequate in accordance with the requirements. So with reduction of density, it would be even more adequate because there's less trips being generated by the subdivision. I want to also touch on one other item and then I'll turn it over to Nick. Oh, the condition of approval about the EDU, the equivalent dwelling unit. There was some testimony about the applicant's proposal. I just wanted to be very clear. We're not proposing that. We're frankly happy to finally get that from the city with regards to a methodology and a calculation. So it wasn't the applicant that's proposing that amount. It's the amount that's been calculated appropriately so by the staff and the consultants based upon the analysis that they've done so far. So that $6,600 amount did not come from the applicant. But we do accept it as part of the contribution that has to be made to fix the system. So I just wanted to touch on those things and turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, council. Again,
Maybe just, real quick, to make it clear, so the 6,600, that's only for those 34 developments. We are not asking any other resident who's now living to pay $6,600.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So this would be a condition of land use approval. And so it would lie within that subdivision.
Yes, okay. Right, so St. Helens taxpayers will pay for improvement through our other means, through our utility fee, but we are not asking people who are already hooked up to this system pay $6,600.
Let me add something. So that 6,600 is not just for the Comstock development. So it's for all the growth area in the UGB. That will be going and flowing into that tax road.
So
But basically, all of those new growth, as they come in, they would have to pay that.
Okay, so for new growth, but not for any existing that currently exists. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I just want to ask a follow-up question. There's already a sanitary sewer system development charge in the city. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, and a CC charge.
So this charge is on top of the sanitary sewer charge that's paid by all development now anyway. So this is an additional fee that's charged on top of that.
Thank you, council. No problem at all. Nick Harris on behalf of the applicant. I just wanted to very quickly speak to some of the concern about the sewer system. All three of those trunk lines that would be affected by this project are categorized as priority 3 in the wastewater plan planning commission relied on in making their findings. And the wastewater plan says, with respect to priority 3, those are areas where the city has reported infrequent or no observations of historical overflows or surcharge. So I just want to address that while there's some concern, and understandably so, because there's needs to upgrade this infrastructure. The fact that these are all priority 3, important to recognize given sort of the triage that needs to occur for the city to respond appropriately. Well, thank you.
If you have any other questions other than that, ask for your support. And then we'll sit down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the council have any final questions before we close the public hearing?
Yes, I open this hearing, appeal of planning commission denial of a 46 lot plan development. Did that change?
That has changed. And the reason it was 46 is because that was the original proposal. That was the proposal before the planning commission, and it was the proposal that was denied. So when it was appealed, that was still the proposal. The applicant has since, and per their correspondence provided to us on Monday, they have since showed a revised plan, reducing it down to 34 lots, a reduction of 26%, And the key reason for doing that is that they were trying to honor everybody's excitement, negative excitement over the predominant amount of lots that were below 7,000. So the planning commission was uncomfortable about the zoning and the substantially small lots that were proposed. And so they recommended making sure there were 7,000. The council upheld that tentatively. Of course, we will know that for sure with the second reading of the ordinance tonight. And so they revised their plan based on that 7,000 square foot minimum. And that was what resulted in that reduction of lots. So the proposal is now 34 lots instead of the 46.
Since I opened that meeting as a 46, and during this meeting, I learned that it went down to 34. Is the council liable in any kind of circumstance with this hearing? As I opened it, and as it now is defined as changed, is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, it's something that we see fairly often when an applicant's trying to navigate through the process. I would ask our legal counsel to answer that. I suspect there is not a liability.
Are they aboard?
No. Jacob, has the planning commission seen this new proposal?
No, they have not, because we hadn't seen it until the 15th.
What is staff's recommendation of going forward with deliberations shortly this evening? If this meeting adjourns in the next 2 minutes, we will be deliberating in 10 to 15 minutes from now. What is the staff's recommendation for the council to move forward?
Yeah, if we had heebie-jeebies over the reduction of lots and the revised plan, and this is something I looked at to make sure it was not substantially different than the original preliminary plat layout, as far as everything else except for lot size. I don't see that. Really, there's no other significant change. And the reason we proposed a draft set of conditions was so that if the council felt like it should approve it based on these revised circumstances, that would be easier to make those motions. And so we do have a suggested approval with the conditions as the applicant has testified, because we did present that to them before the meeting today, and as provided to you in hard copy form before you. Now, that list of conditions, because we were finagling with the estimate within the last couple hours before this meeting, and the draft conditions you have on there has a figure of 12,200. And with consultation with our consultants, we determined that that was not the proper amount, and that's what resulted in the 6,600, which has been discussed here. And I'm prepared to help navigate you with those conditions during deliberations if you are so inclined.
So I'll have to refer to council at this point. I'm not certain if I should adjourn this meeting and go to a regular session and work through this dilemma that I am concerned about. We're going to be voting on something that I think is very important, essentially something that I need to understand that I have not seen. I have not seen the 34 plan, the 34 lot plan. I neither.
I saw it this morning in the email that Jacob sent earlier, but it was, right.
I did not get that.
It was earlier, but I did receive that email.
Yeah, we sent it to the council. And
So with that being said, what's your recommendation?
So Can I clarify one thing before we, so we have deliberations on the issue, but we do not have to make a decision.
I understand.
Okay, so just want to make sure, okay, I understood that too.
Jacob, you'll be around for deliberations, I hope.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And our legal counsel was supposed to be here for this. I hope they're here for the deliberations so they can answer that question for you.
If they knew I was running the meeting, they would have been here.
But I can tell you, the other issue that we do have to deal with is the 120-day rule. And so we can't dilly-daddle forever.
Okay.
What's the 120?
And that is September 17th. So there's some time to, for example, continue the public hearing or deliberate and continue deliberations. At this point, it's hard to imagine you getting additional testimony.
Yes.
And so I would recommend going into deliberations. Now, if you are uncomfortable, you could reopen the public hearing, although that would be kind of awkward. But you can continue deliberations to another meeting if you want more time to digest the record, because there's always a lot of stuff to look at. And we know that you're not cyborgs, you have to sleep, eat, and do stuff like that. So you don't have time to look at everything. So you wouldn't be compelled necessarily to make a decision tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, from your recommendation, I think that's what we'll do. I think we will enter into deliberations this evening. And if there are further questions, I don't know if our board counselor is tuning into this or not. It's a matter of record. So she could back up and listen to this.
Potentially, yeah, if they listen to the record and
Yes.
and are able to testify to that. I will say, I think we Rick Jeannie off on her rebuttal time as the applicant. You probably afford her that
I'm sorry.
opportunity.
Sure.
That's okay. The one thing I would just like to ask is that you consider that we did the 34 plat revision based off of that when we had the like the planning commission meeting, it was decided like just before they had the meeting on the plat review that it had to be the R7 with the planned overlay and what those pieces were going to be, right? So we didn't have any time to revise or put in a different plan for that piece. So it's not that anyone is trying to do anything, nefarious. It's just the new plan was to abide by the decisions that were made by the Land Planning Commission and by the City Council, right? Is the key. And some of the other rebuttal pieces some of them I will not address just because frankly, my blood pressure won't let me for that particular matter. But I think the key is when we think about what my in-laws, what my father-in-law in particular wanted and what my mother-in-law wants through this is to build something that is for the city of St. Helens, that is a nice community that will work with them. And even though there are things that need to be done with the sewage, when you're looking at the sewage, in particular with the basin number 6, because my mother-in-law was an aerospace engineer and used to build airplanes, and they had to do a lot with waste sewage calculations when actually designing aircraft. I didn't realize that either. I learned a lot from her. That when reading through it, there are some things to upgrade actually from trunk 4, offloading it into trunk 6. So when we think about some of those upgrades or different pieces, if it were that overburdened, chances are it wouldn't be the area to reroute some of these bigger developments from that perspective, especially if there's a lower amount of housing available. So really looking into when you're reading and you're doing your deliberations, really kind of looking at what the plans are already in place. And then the cost benefit analysis, having come from a business product background, that the city will get when the streets are opened, to be able to then maybe address some of those issues if they decide to move it up or do it in coincide it with that development, could actually reduce some of the cost to the citizens instead of increasing it. So looking for the win-win and working with the developer in terms of what I used to call integration, tuning, and timing when I was looking at capacity planning for the internet, right? Because you wouldn't necessarily shut down the internet because you've reached capacity, but you would address the hot spots and the cold spots. So looking at some of this as an opportunity to address some of those hot spots that could potentially assist in other areas that are coming in off trunk line 4 that they were talking about rerouting to Basin 6 off of Sykes. So it's not just a benefit to our developments, but there could be other developments impacted that obviously your engineering team would have more specifics around. Does that make sense? So thank you all for your time and consideration. And again, as a family, we are committed to doing what is best for St. Helens. Brothers are not theirs because my family's sick. Didn't want to give you guys all the stomach flu. It would not bode for warm wishes on this end. But we do hope that when you look at the bigger picture, realize we are selling the land because we have to, but we're trying to do it in such a way that is a win-win or benefits all. And that if you could consider the same thing and consider the constitutional rights of my mother-in-law as well, to be able to do this so that she has the funds for her, basically her retirement, to be able to live off the proceeds, right, is the key. But also at the same time uphold what my father-in-law wanted. And what he wanted and what Grandma Sadie wanted was a nice community that would uphold the Comstock name. Some of the stuff that other people have talked about, I believe having had breakfast with him 3 days a week for over 20 years, he was very adamant with what he wanted and what he didn't want. So I hope that you would consider the family history of his great-grandparents being some of the town founders, and that realize that this is something that we have taken a lot of time and devotion into making sure it was done right, to honor his memory. In fact, Jacob will tell you, and even Skip Baker, he had been talking to them about developing himself for the last 20 years. He just unfortunately he ran out of time, for lack of a way to say it. All right, thank you so much and have a great evening.
Anything else? No, we're fine. Good, fine, thank you. Okay, right, you can close the hearing if you feel so obliged.
We'll close this hearing at 7:32. And we will open up our regular city council at 7.
No, we have some stuff so far to deliberate.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this council meeting session to order. It's Tuesday, August 17th. The time is 7:40 PM. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, okay, we'll go ahead and open it up for visitor comments. If you have a comment, please come up and keep it to 5 minutes or less. And take it into the record. Do you have anybody on Zoom?
doesn't look like it, but just a minute.
Okay. So our first item is deliberation appeal of planning commission denial of a 46 lot plan development subdivision. Primarily plot located southeast of the intersection of Pittsburgh Road and Meadow Drive.
So, Mayor, since you recuse yourself on this in the next item, you want to just chill out by the snacks?
I could, or I can sit here quietly. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, if you feel you can just sit there and not influence your fellow counselors,
Sure.
then that'll keep us out of hot water.
Now you made it awkward. I think I'll give the snack. Okay.
See you in a bit.
Thanks, Rick.
So Jacob, I'm going to admit to you to kind of your staff report before we deliberate.
Sure, so tough decision, a lot of things to consider. Because of that series of denials that results in the city having to do moratorium, that's where we're kind of in this pickle. So let's say you decided to deny it. You know, right now our record is 0 as far as that, so that may not itself. Now, if they challenge it to LUBA, you know, they're pretty clear, they would use one of their arguments that it's a de facto moratorium. Is it a literal moratorium? Not necessarily, but that starts that pattern of practice that, you know, the one after that, or maybe 2 after that, or 4, you know, that's when it starts to get to a point where, hey, look, city, statute says you're supposed to do some stuff. And so that's why we're looking at this cautiously, because of the whole back against the wall issue. And this is why, as part of our recommendations, considering the most recent one that reflects the revised preliminary plat, and does have approval, and it's addressing the sanitary sewer issue with that equivalent dwelling unit fee, which is in addition to system development charges, utility fees, and stuff like that. Is it perfect? It's not perfect. But when you're in a pickle, imperfection sign is sometimes something that you have to accept. So to help, because these are complicated, there's a lot of conditions. We forwarded the draft conditions, which are before you, to the applicant, and they seem to favor those. And so conceivably, you know, let's say you wanted to approve it. The best avenue would be based on the conditions as provided to you in a hard copy form. Now, because of some of this latecomer stuff, you could say, you know what? We want time to think about this. We would like to continue deliberations to the next meeting, so we have time to think about it. And that's certainly a fair issue. But also you could consider approving it with those conditions. But, you know, denial and other options are still on the table. If you're talking about the safest bet, because when you get in a street fight, the equivalent of a street fight in a land use application, typically nobody wins. And I think that an appeal to LUBA is probably pretty likely. Usually when someone hires legal counsel, they're gearing up for that. And so, given all that stuff, that's why we're suggesting this approval with those conditions. There'd be some subtle things in the draft conditions there. It has that old number of 1220. We would just need to revise that to 6,600, but the record's clear that we talked about that. And then there's a slight phasing issue with one lot, and that's not controversial. So we'd be able to change the conditions there. So I think a critical question for you as a council is, do you want time to digest, study, and contemplate? Or do you think you're prepared to make a decision tonight?
Well, can we deliberate on that right now?
Well, I want to throw one thing in the deliberation, but yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not prepared. I haven't seen the plot map with the 32 lots. I'd like to even see that before I deliberate. I mean, otherwise I'm at a total loss.
Want to make sure.
You had 15 seconds before to see it.
Yeah, it was emailed this morning, and I know it was a busy day.
So I just got this,
Sure.
I have that, but the question I have is a price for added on for the sewer work. 6,600 or something. If I pay $6,600 per lot, does that automatically increase the size of the pipe right now? Right now, I get a physical problem with the pipe size. If I pay money, it doesn't automatically increase. I have a physical problem. Money kind of jiggles what it seems like everybody should do, but it doesn't change the pipe size, correct?
What it does is it incrementally increases the piggy bank for the purposes of a future capital project. But incrementally, we're talking about pretty big numbers for a major overhaul, and I don't think there's any incremental fix. And so it provides that increment, but the increment by itself does not provide us the capital necessary to upgrade the infrastructure.
But if I build a house right now, I can't flush the toilet. Because the pipe isn't big enough, right? We got money in the bank and plans. The plans are gonna take a number of years to actuate.
Now, the feasibility of flushing the toilet, I guess I would ask Sharon or Mohammed to provide their professional expertise on that. Because I rely on them as the.
They say we've got a physical problem and a legal problem. And I have a feeling the physical problem overrides the legal problem.
Well, obviously, the physical problem isn't gonna change with the 6,600. So with their number of lots, and Mohammed calculated it, that would put just over $200,000 toward an $8 million.
But the fact that they paid it today doesn't fix the pipe today.
No. We would still have to come up with the money to fix it.
But let's say you had the money today, it would be 5 years before it's done, correct?
If we had you mean the whole 8 million?
Yep.
If we had the whole 8 million, then we could start on it, once it's designed.
But how long would that project take?
Yes.
A year to 3, 1 to 3 years. I mean.
Okay, so if they give the money right now, 8 million, they can't really build a house on it for 3 to 5 years, basically. Cause you can't,
If we had the money right away, it would not take 3 to 5 years. So that 3 to 5 year span is because we have to secure a loan. It has to be designed.
Yeah.
It takes time, and so we had to account for that.
yeah, but you still have to design, it, even if you had the money, you don't have to raise it. But there's a real time between now and when it's gonna be operational.
At least minimum point.
Yeah.
No matter how you look at it.
But that's a physical, well, I don't care what the lawyers say, that's the reality, you can't put any more in that pipe until we put a new pipe in. Thank you.
So one last question, and this is a matter of process, but I took notes, obviously, I think all of us were taking notes from the testimonies. Now, if I was sitting in the audience and I was giving testimony, like I think one of the individuals who came forward this morning, or this morning, Saram had been in here all day. When he came forward, he said that he was neutral and he was just going to testify kind of the facts or whatever. But I want to know, for the people who testified in a negative sense, if this 32 lot plan that has been developed and they didn't know about it. And they gave testimony that it wouldn't work. The 40, what is it, 44? And so it got changed to 32, and here they're giving testimony on 44 because there were too many. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know how to open that up to further testimony. We can't have another public hearing, it just adjourned it. So it's a dilemma for me right now that and the developers kind of shot themselves in the foot by not allowing and making certain that we all knew that it was a 32 lot development rather than a 44. I hope I'm clear.
Yeah, you're clear. Now you could reopen the public hearing. And if part of this, it's a legal question because we're in deliberations. My assumption is if we specify the date, time, and place here, then we won't have to re-advertise, because re-advertise, that would probably create a timing problem. But about the change, so the street connections have not changed. The only change is there's overall less density between the two. In fact, if we want to compare the two, we can certainly do so.
Well, that certainly affects the transportation testimonies. It has an effect on the sewer. It has an effect on everything. Come on, my heavens.
Yes, a lesser effect in all regards.
Right. But we can't expect our citizens to calculate that in their head, how much is that? So, you know, I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
And I would
help me out, council.
I would add that there was a lot of testimony and there was a lot of smack talk about the lot sizes. So both the planning commission and council were receptive to that smack talk. And in fact, the applicant was receptive to the smack talk, and they provided a revised plan based on that.
Right.
And so it wasn't a surprise. It was the city kind of, well, we're uncomfortable about this. We may be more uncomfortable if it was in this configuration. And that's what they did. So like, it kind of depends on how you look at it. It's easy for me to say because I've been through all these public hearings, you haven't been through them all, so I understand that.
So. Council, help me out. So, okay. I actually appreciated Counselor Topaz's question about whether or not the planning commission had a chance to see it, and obviously not. And I think as well, first of all, I want to say, I would like to say, even though it was a very long meeting at which the planning commission first considered the overlay and the plat. I think they made a correct decision, even with that they were not. I think we were all tired and all, but from what I know of the people on the planning commission, I think they were giving it their full thought. So I think, well, and I want to say if they made the correction, say that they made the correct decision. I'd like to say, I believe that they made a considered and deliberate decision, even given the length. And again, as liaison, it's not what my point to speak in favor or against at that time, because we have public hearings. So I want to clarify. I'm not saying I think at that time they made the correct decision, but I may think they made a deliberate, well-reasoned decision from what I know of it, that they fulfill their responsibilities as planning commissioners to give this serious thought. That is one reason, though I am as planning commission liaison reluctant to move ahead with the approval of a new plat. Even though as I'm looking at it, it does meet the conditions that the planning commission set and that the city council set to have a minimum of 7,000 square feet per lot. I think they did a great job on that. And they've responded to our concerns, so that the major issue for me is the sewer. It is the sewer system. So I don't know if there's is there any way in this process, given the fact we had the public hearing, this and that the somehow this can be returned in some way or not be returned to the planning commission for at least their impressions of the new plat design and that kind of thing. Is that a possibility in terms of our continued deliberation, or would that be considered new testimony or something that would be not consistent with the nature of our
New public hearing, new notice requirements. And unless the applicant was willing to extend the 120-day rule, we're gonna get into that time frame
for that. Okay, so just wanted to clarify that. So anyway, so I'm just saying what some of my reluctance is maybe moving ahead without the planning commission, not saying that at some point in time. I think we can't make a decision tonight, and that even if we don't have it going to before the planning commission again officially, I know I will have to make a decision, and I'm just.
And I think I heard a comment, what the heck is the 120-day rule? If I didn't, let me explain it, just so everybody knows I'm not just speaking Chinese. So 120-day rule is a state statute that says the local government is supposed to make a decision with a certain amount of time. And the repercussions of not making a decision in that amount of time is the applicants can say, you know what, city, you've taken too long. I'm done with you. I'm going to file a writ of mandamus, bring it to the circuit court judge, and have them decide. And the shortcoming of that is you have a judge who's not trained in development or land use law, making a willy-nilly decision, which you may or may not like. And so it kind of takes it out of your purview. And so making sure you honor that time frame is important, especially, between you and your constituents. If you have your constituents looking at you to make a decision, and then you just delay and delay and delay, and so, you know what?
But our next regular session is prior to the 120 days, right? So I would think that we would need to at least, to wait until the next regular session. But I guess I do want to then know, Jacob, exactly then what, when I'm looking at this, when other council members look at this, what is permissible for me, who to talk to, who to talk to, what information. I don't want to step beyond that line. Am I bound to just the, the testimony that we received here in the public hearing?
Yeah, we would still have to ask for ex parte contacts and stuff like that to make sure that the process is honored.
Okay. So essentially, what I heard tonight is then what I would need to be making my decision on, unless we chose to do it in public hearing, and I guess I'm not suggesting.
Correct, yeah, because that's the record.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I just, when I have to make sure that I'm, being following the rules and
That's a good question.
in those next weeks, I don't want to, okay. And I do think then I think it is important to also note that again, if whether or not we approve or not, that the approval of a plat is not a green light for building. So that we approve the plat, but then there's still a whole process of that the applicants would have to go through in terms of the building permits, et cetera.
That is correct.
That would then also perhaps would be subjected to consideration of capacity of city services.
That is not correct.
That is not correct.
Yeah. Notwithstanding moratorium. You're making a decision based on subdividing this property. You're creating lots for the intent of development within the zoning district, which would be single family dwellings or duplexes.
Okay. All right.
And that's why, with the planning commission, we talked about, all right, well, do we allow the subdivision, but with a condition that you can't build on the lots until the sewer was up.
But that would be something that the condition that the applicant could accept, but they would accept it, but we can't, let's say, so if they accept that, then the understanding is that they'll meet that condition.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they don't accept it, because they would want to build, but if you imposed that, it would be a question of whether or not they want to challenge it to the next level, Land Use Board of Appeals.
And again, my understanding was that the applicants agreed to the conditions that you had proposed.
Yeah, addressing the sanitary sewer issue with the equivalent dwelling unit fee.
Okay. All right. So I'm not prepared to make a decision tonight. And since you're putting off, I just again want to make sure that I knew who I can talk to, thank you.
Neither am I, and I would like to consider testimonies that were revealed tonight, if they're going to change because of this. And I would like to see the citizens have this plot map so that they understand and we're more transparent as a council of what we're ruling on. So I'm concerned about that. That's my whole issue about the process of doing this. And if the proponents of this would grant extensions, I think that would give everyone a bit more time to digest what's going on. We might need to have another public hearing, but just so that things are clear. I'm skeptical of opening this one hearing and then mean, things that I didn't understand change, and it changed today when we've had council all afternoon. Hardly any time to go over this. I was going over our agendas and dealing with issues at hand. Had nothing. So I'm at a loss. And I feel really unfortunate being the person to chair this meeting, not knowing what I'll be voting on.
I think that would be,
And voting. So if we find out if there is some extension granted, that would favor me. If there is no extension granted, we're gonna have to get this done by next week. And a lot of our citizens will not know, will not see this. Will they have an opportunity after they see this to weigh in on it?
so I think we should give the applicant an opportunity to address the 120-day rule exclusively. The public record's closed, so we don't want to bring up new evidence. But they could allow an extension now, but I guess we kind of want to know what your thinking is.
We would like to ask for a couple minutes to talk about it so that we can make a decision about that.
Sure. Can we do some other business and then come back to deliberations to give them time to?
As far as I'm concerned, we've already deliberated. It's like, let's, I'm not prepared to vote. I heard two really good arguments on both sides, copious notes.
They don't have to tell us tonight if they want to continue. I mean, it'd be nice to know, but they could.
Yeah, well, so I'm hearing deliberations just mean you're continuing your discussion amongst yourselves at the next meeting.
Right.
Now, the opportunity for citizens to review the final plat, that's reopening the whole thing.
Exactly.
And
So, I think that's important.
and so, and that hinges, I believe, on the applicant's willingness to extend that 120-day rule.
Let's ask him.
Okay, so,
Jacob, Dave Peterson for the applicant, can I just address this question?
Sure.
So what would the extension be for? That's probably gonna be relevant to our deliberations. Is it gonna be for the city council to reconsider, possibly hold an additional public hearing, possibly not the city council, or are you proposing that this be somehow remanded to the planning commission? That's gonna make a big difference for us, I think.
I've heard a variety. The predominant concern I hear is the new information not being available for a general citizen review. And the only way to, I mean, it's part of the record, you know, you can see it
Yeah, I mean, it's all now, so.
but to be able to speak on it.
Here's what I got in the mail right here, and that's not the new one that I've got in the mail.
So that would be the first question we would have in considering whether or not to grant an extension. Secondly, I believe you said the clock runs September 17th, 31 days from today. Why would the city council not be able to conduct another public hearing and render a decision in 31 days?
Well, I think if they were able to continue the meeting, make a motion to continue it now, then we don't have to worry about, mailing.
The date certain, yeah.
Yeah, that way, that's gonna make it efficient.
I mean, quite frankly, that would be our preference. If the city council was willing to go in that direction and extend this to a date that's still within the 120-day period, that would be our preference.
I see. So to continue, to reopen the public hearing continued to,
Yeah, reopen or not reopen, I mean, that's the council's prerogative. It's when we're gonna get the opportunity to revisit this matter and get a decision.
well, we could come back on the 7th. And
But the 7th, is that the next regularly scheduled meeting?
It is, but that isn't it also when we have the
5:30 public hearing.
we have a public hearing on the 7th.
Yep.
Street vacation.
that'll be quite the public hearing. Oof. So,
just as a
as a member of the community, my testimony wouldn't change. I can't speak for everybody here, but I'm guessing theirs wouldn't change at all. We still feel as passionately about it, whether it be 25, 50, or 100 houses of that. We still feel as passionately about the situation.
I want more information.
Yeah.
So I can't make.
Yeah.
I would also ask you, nobody requested to hold the public hearing open as they had the right to.
Correct.
So that's another hurdle that the city's gonna need to overcome here.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch. I didn't catch it either.
The public exercised their right to ask, have the public hearing held open to be able to respond to supposedly new evidence. Which was their right, but was not exercised.
How do you know something if you don't know? That's the question. You don't know. This is what we get in the mail.
Let's hold on.
Us are.
Have some civility. We've got to hear from this. We're trying to make a decision. You complete your thought, please.
I don't, there's a statute that says at the end of a public hearing on a quasi judicial land use matter, any person who testified can ask to have the record held open in order to respond to new evidence that was presented at the hearing. And that did not happen before the close of the public hearing here. So I'm not going to answer the question, but I'm going to pose the question: does the city have the ability to reopen the public record? Essentially on its own motion. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'm just flagging the issue.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know the answer to that either, but our attorneys, if our attorneys were here, they could advise us. We apologize for that.
But the idea of a continued public hearing is not as essential to my client as the timing. So what I'm hopeful that you can do here is come up with a schedule that would get it done without asking us to extend the clock. If you're gonna ask us to extend the clock, we would want it to be for another city council hearing. We don't see the value of going back to the planning commission on this. And that would inform our decision on whether we'd be willing to extend the clock.
Jacob, how do you feel about that?
The safest thing to do is just continue deliberations.
Yes. Okay, but we need an extension.
Not if you're continuing it to September.
Grant an extension on that, is that correct?
Not if you're continuing it to September 7th. If you continue deliberations, sorry, I can't speak, deliberations to September 7th. We're still within the safe zone.
Will the people who are opposed or who were neutral and or proponents as well, will they have an opportunity to testify in an open council meeting with 5 minutes that they're guaranteed to testify about anything at the first of the meeting?
Well, the applicant's legal counsel brings up a good question. Because nobody exercised the right for the public hearing to be continued. This doesn't happen very often. I don't know why the hell the city legal counsel isn't here, even though we asked them specifically to be here. So we're in this uncomfortable situation. But let's compare the two. The streets are the same. It's just less lots. That's all it is. It's the same layout. It's the same street connections. It's just less lots. It's not a substantial change to the layout.
It's a good perspective. Thank you.
To put it into perspective too, for those of you.
Who's talking?
It's Jeannie Marine on behalf of the family. I'm sorry. We've
got to go. We're going forward with the staff and the council. And we've asked individuals to participate. They haven't been recognized. And no, I'm not opening this up to a free-for-all for everyone just to dive in. So
yeah, what
I'm hearing from council so far that we continue deliberations.
Continue deliberations.
We'll continue our deliberations. And we need to come to a final decision by September 7th, is that right?
Yeah, so you would be continuing deliberations to the September 7th regular session.
Got it.
That would be the motion, if you were to make a motion.
Can I make a motion that we continue to deliberate?
Can I just speak for the applicant's request on the clock still?
Yes.
Is your next meeting the 21st?
No.
No.
September, the council meets.
After the, when's the next one after the 7th?
The 21st,
I
yes.
mean, I would recommend to my client to grant a clock extension to the 21st, if that would help.
Wow.
Okay, just for the purposes of deliberations.
Yeah.
So we bring that before the council.
I understand you have a really busy meeting on the 7th. I don't want to put these people here. I want-
Okay, thank you.
You'd rather do it on the 21st, 4 days is of no consequence.
It will be a doozy.
Did all council members hear that?
Yes.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion? And you are acceptable to that, proponents? Jacob, we need that in writing or anything? You said,
Yeah, ideally we get it in writing. I think the council, as part of the motion, can accept the applicant's oral extension of the 120-day rule to allow deliberations to take place at the September 21st regular session.
everyone hear that? Sounds like a good motion to me. Anyone want to move it forward?
Second.
So moved, so moved. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion so moved from Jacob's testimony. So all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
To be continued.
We're done.
You will not.
And our deliberations here. Is there any more that we need to deliberate?
The record is public, so if you want a copy of it, just let me know.
I want a copy of it.
Yeah. I have a couple extras here, so.
Excellent.
Any further,
This is the confusion that Jacob is.
I got it, okay. Any further, asking the council if there's any further deliberations, and we can move on with our agenda.
No more tonight. We have to move to continue the deliberation.
Yes,
So I move that we continue our deliberations. Or not to the 7th, but to.
No, I thought it was just, I thought that motion was just made and passed.
it was. It was. We're all set.
It was, I thought to accept the, okay.
Okay.
Never mind.
I combined them.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. But it is complicated, and especially when we don't have legal counsel to go, okay, you got this option or this option or this option. I hope you understand.
I vouch for the mental sharpness of planning commission members. I don't vouch for them on you.
Okay, we need to bring the mayor in so that we can continue with our regular.
You have to do the final reading because I wasn't part of that.
Oh, for the overlay. Yeah. So for the I remember.
Council regular session.
And so it's just a final meeting. We don't have to take action unless we're going to say we don't.
Okay, so this is ordinances, final reading. Item number 2 on our agenda, ordinance number 3286. An ordinance to amend the city of St. Helens zoning district map to add a planned development overlay zone for a certain property located at the southeast corner of Pittsburgh Road and Meadowview Drive intersection.
So this does not require a motion. It does require. It is a second.
No, that was a final reading, so we need to take a vote on that.
I move approval of ordinance number.
Okay, it's been read and moved to for approval. Do I hear a second?
I don't understand it enough to second it.
This is for this isn't for tonight, this is for the overlay, which we took action on at previous meeting, so which is distinct from
What we just decided.
what we just decided.
The magic word is overlay. Okay,
Right, and by approving the overlay, we're not approving the plat,
okay.
but the ability to do the plat within the conditions set by the overlay.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we go forward with ordinance number 3286. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And aye. So that passed. And we'll now go, Mayor,
Yes.
we're now on item number 3.
Left my phone up here and I'm like, what about your phone?
They come in to get it. They come in to get it at least.
Okay.
That's, if anybody got the plan here.
No, they don't.
Okay, so our next item on our agenda is approve and authorize for signature, 3 agreement with Polly Rogers and Company PC for auditing services. 4 agreement with Cowboys Bay Watershed Council for maintenance and improvement of natural areas. City-owned property. 5 amendment number 3 to agreement with Act Inc. for First Street and Strand Street Road and Utility Extension Project. 6 intergovernmental agreement with the cities of Oregon City and Gladstone for judicial services. And 7 agreement with ABC Transcription Service LLC to transcribe council meeting minutes. Discussion.
We need a second at first.
Make a motion.
I move we approve and authorize for signature items 3 through 7 as read.
I second. Okay, discussion. We have in other parts of our operation today had some interesting questions about monies, things happening that should be somehow audited, and I think at a very sensitive time. I would at this time really not have just an audit, but a very special audit covering all the services. Not being able to bring up some of the things we brought up in executive session, but a more definitive audit than the ones that this company has been doing.
Well, we could call for that. For auditors
Yeah.
to do a more in-depth audit. It just costs a heck of a lot.
Well, I'm not so sure it wouldn't be saving us money if what's had just transpired. So, but we have an agreement with Polly Rogers, who is the only company who we could actually get to do the services right now. But, we didn't, or who will do an audit of our, very well known, we'll do an audit of all of our city. But they've been doing it. We did go out for a new one, we put it out for our. I know, and then since then, I think the conditions have changed, and that's why. Oh, that's a whole other subject, that I think is what I'm trying to say is I think, I'm not saying that you're not right, but I'm thinking that's a whole other subject of a talking point. Yeah, I agree that it's. Yeah, so I agree on that. Yeah.
Let's stay with this focus.
Sure. Okay, any other discussion? All right, approve and authorize for signature has been 3 through 7 has been have motion and seconded, President Moore.
Aye.
Councilor Topaz. All right. Is Councilor Chilton online? Okay. Councilor Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right, consent agenda for acceptance, 8 library board minutes dated July 11th, 2022. 9 planning commission minutes dated July 12th, 2022.
I move we accept consent agenda items 8 and 9 as read.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve consent agenda 89. Council President Warren.
Aye.
Aye. Worthley.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Council work session, executive session, and public hearing and regular session minutes dated July 2022. And 11 is Cascade Reverse Allocation Annual Adjustment from 79.2% to 83.3%. And 12 amend Public Works Director job description and 13 accounts payable bill list.
I move we approve consent agenda items 10 through 13 as read.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve 10 through 11 as read. Council President Morton.
10 through 13.
13.
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Topaz, Councilor Murphy, and I'm an aye as well. I don't believe we have any action items from earlier. So we'll go to council member reports.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report? Okay, Councilor Topaz.
Okay, I have a number of things. First, kind of going back to last meeting's announcement, Patrick and I went into the reservoir to see what kind of mess that was. And it was definitely eye-opening. A number of things that were obvious to us that should have been picked up years ago weren't done. We should thank Ron, I think it's Timorless, I think that's the way you pronounce it, a neighbor who has been trying to bring it to our attention how bad that reservoir was. I think we owe him an apology. After the inspection of the reservoir, it's obviously we need a new reservoir, and from this is my point of view, if it costs, and we've already paid more than 30% of a brand new reservoir to fix up what we have now, just build a new reservoir. And I think we've already spent more money than that. That's something to come on. ODOT, a piece of information on a traffic circle, they considered a reasonable traffic circle having 125 degrees ID in the 2 lanes on either side, or total 4 lanes. Basically, a traffic circle that will be used will be 200 feet in diameter. That's that. Now, we had a nice report about the Citizens Day in the park over at the park. And a couple of Sundays ago, the veterans were over the park and they cleaned up a bunch of stuff. Plus had quite a go in the park. The McCormick Park is being helped and enjoyed by the community by quite a lot. Judy Thompson and the veterans did quite a job on that. They should be given a pat on the back. We had a tour from Business Oregon and a few others of the city and our projects. And they were thinking of having a public meeting describing a number of things. And the question came up, where could we have a public meeting? And one of the possibilities, we were thinking of the library meeting room, except it doesn't have a good TV hookup. And I think somehow we ought to wire up the library similar to what we have here in City Hall, to have an alternate public meeting room. Okay, next problem. The food bank just got started. We had a big opening on that. And one of the problems that the food bank had, they had the plans for the food bank presented to the city. They were accepted halfway through, the city changed its mind. And they had to redo a number of things, which was about 100,000 and change. And plus we paid, the city was paid $50,000 to oversee it, plus the permits. And a similar type of permit course for the high school. Somehow I wish that the city could be able to say, have goodness of their heart to not charge things like the food bank and the high school building, the permit course that we did. The permit course for the high school is about $1.5 million. That's a teacher in a classroom. That's kind of what, oh, one other thing. We're having discussions, we're not, Boise and DEQ are having discussions about the contaminated water front in front of the mill. Portland Harbor had a similar go at the Willamette Cove. And they just got ruled that everything has to be pulled out. They're not allowed to cover stuff over. Hopefully, we can use that precedent to have DEQ have Boise clean it up rather than cover it over. That's what I have.
On a food bank, are they accepting donations at the new building?
Yes. Oh, yeah, they're full.
So you guys do this vote, donate, I actually have some cards, but it's getting sloppy. Myself, Mayor Cole and Mayor Burge are in a competition. And whoever raises the least amount of money gets organic material. Yes, organic material, not the produce, basically, the rotten produce gets mushed up.
Oh, okay, the leak,
And we'll get slopped live on Facebook.
oh my goodness.
5:30.
Okay, so what's your,
So donate, if you donate to the food bank, please make sure you put it under your soul.
Can it be retroactive?
Or not, but donate, or not, but donate.
Okay, I don't know, Mayor. No, no. Okay, well, so
any donation in your name is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
We don't have to have you go down there and give it.
No,
Okay.
nope, actually, and I have some cards I printed up, I'll bring it to the city staff, if they don't wanna. It's got a little, you can either text or click on, and then, or you can go make a donation in person.
Okay.
And just reference me. Are you done?
I'm done.
Council Berkeley.
Okay, cool. Just a couple of things that decided at the last planning commission meeting, or request. Well, one is that they are looking to change their meeting time. Not now, but when we set it for next year to 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. So anyway, so that's what they would like to do, and that will be effective if we approve that anyway for next year. There is an interest in having quarterly joint meetings, and something that we add to the part of the calendar that we approve. That we approve for next year as well. But they think that that would be more helpful in terms of being consistent and with our communications and working together, especially since we have so much going on. So both things to consider. Thanks. Yes, I want to thank Mohammed and all the public works staff who helped Councilor Topaz, myself, Mr. Wall, to get down into that reservoir. We had to be harnessed and hooked to go down. I had to sign a release that I was aware of the oxygen level going before I descended into. So kudos for the crew who didn't cut the cable. No. So anyway, it was a fascinating.
Anybody get video?
Sure. I have a little bit and a few photos, and I was telling Mohammed I have to share some of that. So I will share what we have.
It's
there.
kind of dark in there.
And then we also did a trip up to the 500,000 gallon reservoir up at the States. Yeah, very, very informative, very fun. When we came back from that, I noticed that the court was in session. I popped into the courtroom, and they had just actually finished for the morning, but told me they had a 1:30 meeting or hearing. So I went back at 1:30, and it was actually a very short session. So I went back last week, Thursday, to sit through a court session, which was more active and more cases, and very eye-opening, and really confirms the decision the city council made to maintain a municipal court. Even though it's not, a money maker, but what I saw the value. First of all, I was just so impressed by the professionalism of Judge She runs a great of our court clerk and our other staff. They're professionals. Our prosecutor, Sam Erskine, our contractors who provide the bailiff services, be very, very professional. I got, even though I said who I was and why I was there, I got metal detected, going in. I think that's, that was good. Anyway, but I was very impressed by those services, but I think the reason why I'm glad we have municipal court is that I think some people think municipal court, city court, okay, traffic tickets, not a big deal. But there were some decisions that were being made in that court that are having a profound impact on residents, their families. And I think that by having municipal court, that we can adjudicate those cases more quickly than if we didn't, and we had turned things over, to the county and to the DA, and that it performs an important role. So I if you get a chance to go sit in during one of the sessions. There was no jury, none of these were jury sessions, but they were all with lawyers representing and pleading and this and that. A really eye opener. I think we should be very proud of that we have a court and of the personnel who staff our court. Had fun at the food bank ribbon cutting and got the chance to go to the evening soiree and a lot of fun and just a great facility. While I was there, I had a chance to talk with the communication director for the next development and picked his mind about a lot of things to learn more about that. And then one more field trip. I trying to pack in a lot before the school year begins. Makerspace. That makerspace. Wow. And Lisa, Lisa was there with her daughter, making use of some things to make for a family reunion. Alan, who is running that, is like top notch. We need to expand. We need to expand that facility if we can within the confines of that building, and pray for another Diane Kim who donated the initial $1 million for the construction of the Columbia Learning Center. We need another Diane Kim to front $1 million and challenge the community to add on to that whole facility, our library. Just fantastic what we are doing and the opportunities that this makerspace has for not just for kids, adults are there, but the plans, the things we can do for coordination with CET, connections with OMIC, just wow, we are ahead of the game, and we should be proud of this little old town with our makerspace.
Alan is actually helping teach over at OMEC, and a number of industrial people have come in to use that. It's just not for fun and kids. It's also helping. And he is better than good, isn't he?
Oh, geez. Yes. I didn't know he was involved with in construction of a $22 million facility at the University of Portland. Yes. So what are you doing here in this room? I'm glad you're here. We're glad you're here. One other thing, and I should have brought this up last time too, is I in the beginning of the school year, this brings some challenges to me in fulfillment of my council duties. And I have had some conversation with John, and I did chat with the mayor a little bit about this, but I wanted to raise this also with council members, that looking at the possibility of changing our work session times to 2 o'clock rather than 1 o'clock as a start time. I know that would take some action on our behalf to do that. The principal reason for that is the school district has been my principal and the district have been very accommodating to my schedule on Wednesdays, which is an early release day for me to leave the school early. But the students are still in class for a half hour, so that requires another staff member, and it has been our counselor to come and fill in that final half hour. And she's been glad to do it, but I think it's also taking away from her ability to do her job. By moving it to 2 o'clock, I would still be leaving my building early, my work early. I'd have to work that out but I would be able to be with my students to the end of the day and see them get them on the bus and out of the building. So I would ask your consideration of that, that perhaps if we put it on September, that we change to a 2 o'clock start time instead of the
Tell me about like a day like today. We wouldn't have a chance to even break for dinner.
This is true today, but I'm also thinking,
Yeah, so along with that, could we take some of the agenda items and put a time interval on those? Because some of those go to an hour and 10 minutes in a report.
Can I just, so Mayor, can I before we say also one of the things what I pitched to the mayor and to John is being more efficient in our meetings. And such things like when we do have presentations, maybe putting a time on, a time limit on that. So that I think we got great information from CET, from the chamber. Today, maybe, they provide us information, but maybe they give us the 15-minute sales pitch and then we do so. So yes, we have to tighten up how we do things. So I just wanted to say it was.
Yeah, some are an hour and some are like CCT today was like, oh my heavens, 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, and pertinent information. Whoa. Yeah,
this was actually longer.
So I'm definitely not opposed to it because like Patrick, I try to work sometimes in that morning period and I get a lot more done, and it seems like 1 o'clock comes really fast when you're working. So I'm not opposed to an extra hour later. And I think it could work. I definitely see it. Our work sessions should be done by 5. They should be. A 3-hour work session should be sufficient. It just should be.
Max.
It just should be. It should be. When I talk to other mayors, are you done with your report?
Yes.
Okay, because I did go to the mayor's conference.
Yeah.
I talk to other mayors and I tell them what we're doing twice a month. Their jaws drop.
exactly.
And I say, yeah, we got a lot going on. And we do have a lot going on. We have a lot of things in motion. So I'm not opposed to that. And if it does become a little bit of an issue, we could start our evening session just at 7:30 and push the public hearings to the front. I mean, it is what it is. It's twice a month. But I definitely would like to try it out to see how it.
I certainly think the agenda items could be shortened.
Yep.
And timed.
Yep, I do too. And if we do our homework and we look at our packets, we should have less questions and make a phone call to staff and get most of them answered. So
would the next step be to crafting on a resolution? What would we require?
We just have to make a public notice of it. Yeah, just public notice on and then also on our site and
I believe the hours are in the governing policy, time the meetings are.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we wouldn't have to begin that until the 21st.
Well, this one,
If we did it, so if we could start with this school year, the 21st, because actually, the first day, sorry, I guess I'm not done with my report. The first day of school for students is a Friday. Our school, Tuesday, so the Tuesday after Labor Day is the typical, I don't know if that's the true for high school, but at elementary school. We have 3 days of parent, family, teacher conferences in preparation for so anyway.
For the year?
Huh?
You have it in preparation for the
For the year, I guess the idea is, I don't know a lot of details, the idea is that we have an opportunity to really talk with parents about expectations, things prior to the beginning of the year, and we'll still have our November conferences. So it's something the district is trying. So anyway, I can adjust my schedule on the 7th, and if I like that, I could do shot from 21st for a 2 o'clock start time.
So we should be able to change that policy though by in a month from now, right?
In a month? Oh, yeah, by.
Yeah.
by the
Yeah,
20
to have it adopted.
On the 7th.
Yeah.
So that's the only change is the work session right now.
Yes.
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 And on the agenda, a suggested time.
Appreciate that.
And I'm gonna also visitor comments are gonna go to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll move things.
Yeah. So.
You know, that's what we had tonight.
Yeah.
Most of them were.
Yes.
23 is.
It's sufficient, it's sufficient, and if you need more, and you're legitimate, the mayor or councilors could ask to hear more at any point in time.
They can provide.
Last meeting with an intentional filibuster.
So, yeah, I went to the mayor's conference down in Newport with an excellent retreat. Newport has done a lot with their urban renewals down there. They got 3 different sections of urban renewal, and it's amazing how long Newport is. And yeah, it's miles long. As a matter of fact, their new urban renewal is out towards the Agate Beach. And that's that hotel as you come into town was actually partly inspired by urban renewal dollars. So it's, I think, it's not even a hotel, it's actually affordable living there. And I think it's 80 some units. So, yeah, just a bunch of different breakout seminars, learned a lot about tourism. And if you were in the old tourism, you could have a little bit more flexibility with your money. And then it actually changed back in, I think, 2003. Does that sound right, John? 2003. So, very informative. And we are spending our money legitimately, how the only way we can. And that's, you know, it's one of those things that you shouldn't really know about in St. Helens, but we have a really good tourism program here. And I was funny talking to other mayors and when they referenced St. Helens, they got Halloween Town, you know. And I was able to show off our sandcastle competition, because I have pictures on my phone. And just everything we got going on with 13 nights, and they're like, oh yeah. And they're like, yeah, we've had seafood, well, there's Quarter Flash out here twice. We had Curtis Delgado almost every year. They're like, really? Free concerts? So that was kind of, you know, we do have a lot going on for a little city. Our urban renewal is very robust. The sewer problem is, I wish I could be part of this conversation, but we need to actually dive into this more in a work session.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about moratoriums, that involves me as well.
Yeah.
With a certain zoning or one principal parcel.
Right.
And I need to be informed.
Yeah.
And I need to know what's going on. And we need to find a remedy to getting there on a fast track. You know, none of us, we didn't know none of this. I wish somebody had been pounding their fist and saying this has to be addressed. And here for 6 years, and now it's like, this is not good. And we owe it to our citizens to fast track this. You know, anybody wanting to build a future in this? You know, in this city, we have developers that live in our town. Okay, that spend dollars here, that supply jobs to other local contractors. We owe it to them to do this.
Yeah, I've been.
Rather than sit back and do nothing. So I would really like to this be a high point on our agendas, like we're not gonna leave it alone. And we keep coming back to it until we get there. And you know, we'll get through it. It was just knowing that we're not alone. I also heard this from other mayors that are having the aging infrastructures that we all have and the capacity of pipe. And how you can't get over that 50%. Once you do, it actually blocks flow, even though the pipe's not full, it blocks flow. So, but I just think we just need to keep revisiting this and we're gonna get there. And
There's a lot of federal money coming our
I
way
do
as
too.
well.
I
for
do too. And
infrastructure.
we'll be looking at that.
You know, Rick, you mentioned, I've talked to a couple of developers who are not here, and they are always worried about coming here because of the restrictions in sewer. I mean, it's like school sewer, you gotta have it, otherwise people don't come. It's not something you can wish away.
Yes. And, you know, and particularly, I mean, especially within our urban renewal. Something big comes along there and we can't build there. We are literally shooting ourselves in the foot. And it's not fair to have those areas. I mean, we're gonna be developing down here, of course, we're only going out over the hill with the pump station. Not a lot of piping between here and there. But how is that fair to other side of town that the city can still developing it and.
Yeah.
People who wanna try to annex in or do their thing can't. Or are already invested. You know, that's another thing. I'm not a wealthy man, but I couldn't imagine having a significant amount of money invested and not being able to do something. It would absolutely drive me crazy because I am not built like that. So, it was a really good conference, though. There was a lot of different, the greatest part was actually, having lunch with Rosie Parsons, our essay winner and her family, Patty and John, and, Ellie Luke, and her, Kara and Matt. Matt, I'm pretty sure is his name, yes. But it was just really neat presenting to them and, when they actually started with the PowerPoint presentation. And that was from Pendleton, and actually Mayor Callaway had to do it because the mayor didn't show up. And then they're like, okay, on these next ones, we're just gonna turn it over to the mayor of St. Helens because he has the next two. And I was able to also say yes, and we also placed second with Hayden Strand in our PowerPoint. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, I just think in moving forward, we have a lot of, you know, and like tonight, you guys just be thinking outside the box. Sometimes we don't always have to do it on a council meeting. You can do a public hearing anytime. Doesn't have to be on those Wednesdays. You know, and because I'm gonna be recusing myself, and probably I would prefer on something like that, where you did just do an oddball day. And no, I mean, those are big hearings anyhow. They are. And we don't always have to do public hearings on those days. You not always have to do that. So rather than doing all this, you know, ramrodding it in, that's something to think about. It doesn't always have to be. Yes, it creates a little more work for everybody, but it spreads it out and probably makes it more efficient because you all can get tired. And when I get tired, I'm not always on point. And I feel refreshed right now from that retreat.
I'm glad you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, the food bank, was at the, mayor's convention, but, congratulations to them opening. I know we did actually do a lot of work for that food bank. We actually helped them acquire that $1.5 block grant, with a small minimal fee of $50,000 to actually, manage a big folder full of stuff. And make sure that it's all submitted to the federal level. So, I did hear what you were saying, Councilor Topaz, but we can't waive fees for anybody. We follow our own rules personally as a city. Sometimes very frustrating because it holds us up and other cities don't. We are the city, we're just gonna do it. But we do. Sometimes we don't always have to, but we always do just because it's the process. So, make a donation to the food bank before the 23rd. Don't let this mayor get slopped. Right? So I look forward to touring the new building. I'm sure it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Very nice inside. I like the little mural they have on the outside. And with that, I think that's all. I have.
It echoes inside, they're just getting started, it echoes.